The day the stars remembered Earth. The galaxy forgot us, but the stars never did. They say that when a civilization dies, the universe feels nothing. No mourning, no pause. The great cosmic wheel turns, indifferent to the rise and fall of those who once looked up and dared to dream. But they are wrong. The universe remembers everything, every cry, every laugh, every defiant scream into the void. And on the day the stars remembered Earth, the galaxy would learn that some echoes never fade. My name is Keeper of Distant Light, and I am the last curator of the archive of fallen voices. For 3,000 cycles, I have wandered the empty halls of this station, cataloging the remnants of civilizations that burned bright and vanished into darkness. The Zinthara, who sang their worlds into existence. The Krell Dominion, who built engines that could tear holes in reality itself. The Velkar, who learned to touch the minds of stars. All gone now, all silent, but none haunted me like the humans. I found the first trace of them in Sector 447, orbiting a dying red dwarf that had once been called something. The translation matrices couldn't quite capture it. Sul, perhaps, or sun. A simple word for something that must have meant everything to them. The planet below was a tomb, gray, lifeless, its oceans long evaporated into space, its atmosphere stripped away by stellar winds. Yet there, in the ruins of what might have been a city, I detected a signal, faint, impossibly old, but still transmitting. I descended through clouds of dust that had once been buildings, through streets that had once carried the footsteps of millions. The silence was absolute. No wind, no life, just the patient decay of time itself. And there, buried beneath a collapsed structure of metal and stone, I found it, a crystalline data core, sealed in a chamber that had somehow survived the death of everything around it. The seal bore symbols I had never seen before, angular, efficient, almost aggressive in their simplicity. And beneath them, words in 100 different scripts, as if the creators wanted to ensure that anyone, anywhere, could understand. We were here. Remember us. I took the core back to my station and spent 7 days trying to access it. The encryption was unlike anything in my archives, not elegant like the Zinthara's quantum harmonics, not brutish like the Krell's molecular locks. It was adaptive, aggressive. It fought me. It tested me. And when I finally broke through, I realized why. It didn't want to be forgotten. The first file was a voice. Human, I would later learn. Female. Young. Terrified. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet, broadcasting from the ruins of Mars Station 7. If anyone is receiving this, if anyone survives, please know that we tried. God help us. We tried. The recording crackled with static, punctuated by sounds I couldn't identify. Alarms, explosions, something that might have been screaming. The Devourers came from beyond the heliopause. We had 10 hours of warning. 10 hours to prepare for something we couldn't comprehend, couldn't fight, couldn't reason with. They didn't want our resources. They didn't want our worlds. They just wanted us. Gone. Erased. As if we were a mistake they needed to correct. I listened in silence, my 3 hearts beating in slow, sorrowful rhythm. We evacuated Earth, got 3 billion souls off-world before the end, scattered them across the colony ships, sent them running in every direction we could think of. Maybe some made it. Maybe somewhere out there, human children are still laughing under alien suns. I have to believe that. I have to. The recording cut off suddenly, replaced by another voice. Male, older, calmer. This is Dr. James Okoye, Chief Xenoanthropologist of the United Earth Science Directorate. If you're listening to this, you found one of our memory vaults. Thank you. Thank you for caring enough to listen. What follows is not a plea for help. We're beyond that now. This is a record, a testament, proof that we existed, that we mattered, that we loved and fought and dreamed and refused to go quietly into the dark. What followed was everything. I spent months diving into that archive, and with each file, each fragment of data, the humans came alive before me. Not as statistics or historical footnotes, but as something raw and real and impossibly complex. They were a contradiction wrapped in flesh, violent and compassionate, rational and emotional, unified and endlessly divided. They had barely left their homeworld when they first encountered the Galactic Council. Primitive by any standard, still burning chemical rockets, still killing each other over resources and ideology. The Council had laughed at them, dismissed them as another aggressive species that would either destroy itself or be destroyed by the first real threat it encountered. But the humans surprised everyone. They didn't unite because they suddenly became enlightened or peaceful. They united because they were terrified and angry and refused to let fear make them weak. They looked at the galaxy, vast and ancient and utterly indifferent to their existence, and said, "We belong here. We will make ourselves belong." I found records of their first colony ship launches, massive vessels held together with optimism and desperation, carrying tens of thousands toward worlds they'd only glimpsed through telescopes. Half of those ships failed. Engines malfunctioned, life support collapsed, navigation errors sent them spinning into the void. But the humans kept launching, kept trying, kept dying, and the survivors, they thrived. There was a recording from New Terra, the first successful extrasolar colony. The speaker was an old woman named Liu Wei, one of the original settlers. We buried 43 people in the first year, another 62 in the second. The planet tried to kill us in every way possible. Toxic flora, atmospheric fluctuations, predators that made Earth's dinosaurs look like house pets. But we stayed. We fought. We adapted. And after 10 years we threw a festival. Danced under 3 moons. Drank wine made from native grapes that had nearly poisoned us the first time we tried to eat them. And we sang Earth songs and cried and laughed and knew we'd made it. But it wasn't just survival that defined them. It was what they did with that survival. I found art, music, poetry composed in zero gravity and broadcast across light years to reach loved ones who might never hear it. I found scientific papers that bent my understanding of physics, medical breakthroughs that seemed impossible for a species so young, philosophical treatises that asked questions my people had stopped asking millennia ago. One file particularly struck me, a children's book called The Little Star That Refused to Die. It told the story of a small, dying star that gathered the last of its energy to send one final burst of light across the universe, hoping someone, somewhere, would see it and know it had existed. The last line made my translation matrix glitch with something that might have been emotion. Even the smallest light matters because darkness has no power over those who refuse to be forgotten. I began to understand what made humans different. It wasn't strength. Dozens of species were stronger. It wasn't intelligence. The Zinthara had minds that operated on quantum levels. It wasn't technology. The Krell had built wonders that still defied explanation. It was defiance, pure, irrational, beautiful defiance. The archive showed me their wars, and there were so many wars. Against themselves, against nature, against fate itself. I watched recordings of human soldiers holding impossible positions not because they could win, but because someone needed to buy time for others to escape. I read letters written by dying medics to children they'd never meet, explaining why their sacrifice mattered. I found the last transmission from Mars Station 7, where Commander Chen and her crew stayed behind to manually detonate the station's fusion reactor, taking a Devourer scout ship with them. For Earth, she whispered in those final seconds. For everyone we couldn't save. For everyone who'll never know we existed. This is our echo. This is our fucking echo. The explosion registered as a brief flare on long-range sensors, then silence. But the archive didn't end with war. It couldn't. Because for all their violence, humans were equally capable of staggering compassion. I found records of the Mercy Fleet, a collection of colony ships that reversed course when they received distress signals from a failing Velkar world seed. The Velkar had never acknowledged human existence, had dismissed them as beneath notice. Yet when their terraforming project began to collapse, threatening to kill millions of their young, the humans came. They arrived with supplies, engineers, medical personnel, worked for 3 years to stabilize the world seed, lost hundreds to radiation exposure and equipment failures, And when the Velkar finally achieved stable atmosphere and sent a formal acknowledgement of the humans' efforts, the fleet commander's response was simple. We didn't do it for thanks. We did it because those were children dying, and we had the power to stop it. That's enough. The archive showed me human festivals and mourning rituals. Marriage ceremonies performed in asteroid habitats. Funerals where the deceased's ashes were released into the corona of a sun. Birthday parties on generation ships where great-grandchildren sang songs to the frozen sleepers who'd never wake to see their destination. I saw humans at their worst, greedy, cruel, short-sighted. I saw them at their best, selfless, brilliant, impossibly brave. And I realized that they were always both, simultaneously, without apology or pretense. They were real in a way that made every other species I'd studied seem somehow incomplete. 6 months into my research, I found the war logs. The Devourers weren't raiders or conquerors. They were something far worse, cosmic janitors, cleaning up what they perceived as evolutionary mistakes. Intelligence offended them. Self-awareness was an aberration to be corrected. They had been pruning the galaxy for eons, and humanity's rapid spread had triggered their attention. The war lasted 17 years. 17 years of running, hiding, fighting with everything they had. The human fleets were outmatched in every engagement, their weapons barely scratching the Devourers' organic metal hulls. But they learned, adapted, found the weak points, developed tactics based not on superior technology, but on superior unpredictability. There was a battle report from the Proxima Defense. 3,000 human ships against a Devourer harvester fleet. The humans should have been annihilated. Instead, they implemented something called the Shepherd Protocol. They synchronized their fusion drives to emit a specific resonance frequency that interfered with Devourer hive communication. For 17 minutes, the Devourer fleet flew blind. 17 minutes was enough. The humans tore through them like a storm through paper. Suicide runs, ramming attacks, fighters diving into exhaust ports with nuclear payloads strapped to their hulls. It was chaos. It was madness. It was beautiful in its absolute refusal to accept defeat. They won that battle, lost 70% of their ships, saved 6 billion lives on Proxima B. Admiral Marcus Webb's final transmission from his dying flagship became legendary among the scattered human colonies. We didn't win because we were better. We won because we decided losing wasn't an option. That's the thing about humans. We don't know when to quit. It's our greatest weakness and our greatest strength. So here's my message to the Devourers. You picked the wrong species to try to erase. We're stubborn, we're angry, and we're really tired of running. But there weren't enough victories. The Devourers kept coming, and humanity kept losing ground. Colony after colony fell silent. Fleets were scattered, resources dwindled. By the war's end, humanity was a shadow of itself. Fragmented remnants hiding in the dark spaces between stars, waiting for the final blow. Then something impossible happened. The humans vanished. Not destroyed, not conquered, just gone. Every human settlement, every ship, every outpost, empty. As if billions of people had simply decided to walk into another dimension. The Devourers searched for 300 years, found nothing, and eventually moved on to other sectors. The Galactic Council sent investigative teams, discovered abandoned cities with lights still burning and meals still on tables, and concluded it was a mass ascension event or dimensional shift. But the truth was in the archive. Buried deep, protected by layers of encryption that had taken me months to crack, I found it. Project Dandelion. The name made me pause. I had to research the reference, a small earth plant that turned into wisps of white, spreading seeds on the wind to far places where they might take root. A perfect metaphor. The final human generation had made a choice. Rather than fight until extinction, rather than watch their species die world by world, they decided to become something else, something that couldn't be destroyed because it couldn't be found. They had developed technology based on quantum consciousness transfer, not uploading minds to machines, but spreading human consciousness across the quantum foam of reality itself. Billions of humans simultaneously released their physical forms and dispersed into the fundamental substrate of space-time. They became patterns in probability, ghosts in the quantum machine, present everywhere and nowhere, observing the universe from within its own structure. It was the ultimate survival strategy. The Devourers couldn't kill what they couldn't perceive, and humanity would exist as long as reality itself continued to function. But it was also a sacrifice of unimaginable magnitude. They gave up touch, taste, the warmth of sun on skin, the sound of loved ones' voices, everything physical, everything real, all to ensure that some part of them would survive. The last entry in the archive was from Dr. Okoye, recorded moments before the final dispersal. If you're hearing this, we succeeded. We're still out there, in ways you can't detect or understand. We watch. We remember. We exist in the spaces between your thoughts, in the collapse of wave functions, in the moment before quantum decoherence resolves possibility into reality. We are the observers that make the universe real through observation. We are everywhere. We are everything. And we are so lonely. His voice cracked with emotion. But we're alive. That's what matters. The Devourers wanted to erase us, to prune our branch from the cosmic tree. Instead, we became the tree. We became the wind. We became the space between stars. We are the question mark the universe asks itself. We are proof that consciousness, once ignited, cannot be extinguished. It can only transform. There was a long pause, filled with soft sounds that might have been crying. So here's our final gift to whatever comes after. Remember that you are not alone. You have never been alone. In every quantum fluctuation, in every moment of spontaneous probability collapse that defies pure determinism, in every coincidence that feels too perfect to be random, we are there. The universe has a trillion eyes, and some of them remember being human. Some of them remember looking up at stars and feeling wonder. Some of them remember love. The recording ended with 5 words that became seared into my memory. We were here. We matter. I spent 7 days in silence after that, trying to process what I'd learned. Then I did something I hadn't done in 3,000 cycles. I left the archive. I traveled to Earth, stood on the dead soil beneath that cold red sun, looked up at a sky that had once been blue, that had once held clouds and birds and the dreams of billions. I touched the dust that had been cities, forests, oceans, and I spoke into the void. I hear you, I said. Someone hears you. For a moment, and this is irrational, I know, unscientific. For a moment, I felt something, a warmth, a presence, the sensation of being watched by something vast and impossibly gentle. Then it passed. But it had been there. I was certain. I returned to my station and did something unprecedented in the archive's history. I opened the human files to the galactic network, made them public, free, accessible to anyone with the curiosity to look. The response was explosive. Species across the galaxy suddenly became obsessed with humanity. Their art influenced our artists. Their music inspired our composers. Their philosophy challenged our assumptions. Entire academic fields emerged studying human behavioral patterns, human ethics, human potential. The Velkar whose worldseed the humans had saved began a tradition of the human hour, a daily period where they would read human literature to their young and discuss what it meant to be compassionate, even to those who offered nothing in return. The Zinthara, whose songs had once dismissed humans as too chaotic to produce true beauty, incorporated human musical scales into their compositions and found a dissonance that somehow felt more honest, more real than their perfect harmonics ever had. Even the Krell, who had considered humanity beneath notice, began studying human tactical innovations and discovered that chaos, properly harnessed, could be a weapon more powerful than any they'd engineered. Humanity became myth, legend, the species that refused to die, that transformed defeat into transcendence, that survived by becoming part of the universe itself. And strange things began happening. Scientists reported probability anomalies in quantum experiments, outcomes that defied statistical models, but seemed to favor consciousness, life, complexity. Explorers found derelict ships suddenly powering on when they approached, as if something was trying to help. Entire colonies reported shared dreams of a blue planet and voices singing songs in languages no one remembered. The Devourers returned once, 300 years after the dispersal. They encountered a Velkar trade fleet near the former human sector and prepared to attack. Then every ship in the Devourer fleet simultaneously experienced catastrophic quantum drive failures. 1 second they were advancing, the next they were drifting hulks, their biological computers fried by what looked like quantum interference patterns. The Velkar captain's report included a detail that chilled me. In the moment before the Devourers failed, all our sensors detected a spike in quantum observer phenomena. It was as if billions of minds were suddenly paying attention, watching, waiting. And then reality itself rejected the Devourers' presence. The Devourers never returned to that sector. Perhaps they understood. Perhaps they finally grasped that you cannot kill an idea, and humanity had become the universe's most persistent idea. I am old now, even by my species' standards. My carapace has grayed. My sight dims. Soon another will take my place as keeper of distant light, and I will join the silent archives myself. But before I go, I return to Earth one last time. I stand beneath that red sun, on that dead world, and I speak to the silence, not as a curator or researcher, simply as one consciousness to another. Thank you, I say. Thank you for refusing to die. Thank you for showing us that survival isn't about strength or intelligence or technology. It's about the fundamental, irrational, beautiful refusal to let the universe forget you existed. You taught us that mattering isn't something the cosmos grants. It's something you claim through sheer determination. I touch the dust, feel it slip between my manipulator digits like water. You're still here, aren't you? In this dust, in the light from distant stars, in the quantum foam beneath reality. You're watching, you're remembering, you're proving that consciousness, once awakened, echoes forever. The wind picks up, an impossible wind on this airless world, and for just a moment I hear it. Music, laughter, the sound of a species that refused to go quietly. Then it fades, and I'm alone again. But I'm not really alone. None of us are. That's the final gift humanity gave the galaxy. In every laboratory where scientists probe the mysteries of quantum mechanics, there's a small, inexplicable bias toward outcomes that favor complexity in life. In every moment of crisis when explorers find impossible luck, when ships hold together just long enough, when resources appear exactly when needed, in every coincidence that defies probability, in every moment when the universe seems just a little less cold, a little less indifferent, they're there. Humanity didn't die. They became something that cannot die. They became the proof that consciousness changes reality through observation. They became the universe looking at itself and feeling wonder. They became the echoes that remind every species who looks up at the stars, you are not alone, you matter. Your existence changes everything. I leave Earth for the last time and return to my station. Upload this record to the galactic network alongside all the others, and I add my own testimony to theirs. I, keeper of distant light of the archival service curator of 1,000,000 dead civilizations, declare before all who will listen. Of all the species I have studied, of all the empires that rose and fell, none have influenced the galaxy more than humanity. Not through conquest, not through technology. Through sheer stubborn insistence that they mattered. They changed us, all of us, made us look at existence differently, made us believe that consciousness itself is the universe's greatest achievement, and that once ignited, it can never truly be extinguished. The message spreads across the galaxy. Reaches systems humanity never knew existed, touches species that won't evolve for another 1,000,000 years, but who will, when they finally look up at the stars, feel something calling to them, something that says, you belong here, you matter, keep going. This is the day the stars remembered Earth, and the remembering will never end, because humanity taught us the final truth. We are not the atoms that compose us. We are not the bodies that contain us. We are the patterns, the information. The consciousness that observes and changes and creates meaning from chaos. And patterns, once established, echo forever through the quantum substrate of reality. Every star that burns is surrounded by the ghosts of humanity, watching it shine. Every world that develops life feels their presence in the probability waves that favor complexity over simplicity. Every species that achieves sentience and looks up at the night sky will hear, faint but eternal, the echo of humanity's first message to the cosmos. We are here, we matter, and you are not alone. I am dying now. Feel my consciousness beginning to fragment, to fade. But I am not afraid. Because I know with absolute certainty that consciousness persists, that the patterns we create, the memories we form, the love we feel, all of it continues. All of it echoes. Perhaps I'll join them. Perhaps that's what death is. Not ending, but dispersing. Not silence, but transformation into something that exists in the spaces between moments, watching the universe continue its impossible journey from simplicity to complexity to meaning. My last thought, as the darkness comes, is this. Thank you, humanity. Thank you for being so beautifully, irrationally, wonderfully stubborn. Thank you for refusing to let the universe forget you. Thank you for showing us all that mattering isn't something granted by cosmic law. It's something we claim through existence itself. You were here, you matter, and we will remember. We will always remember. The transmission ends. But somewhere in the quantum foam of reality, in the collapse of wave functions across a billion worlds, in the moment before possibility becomes certainty, they hear it, they know, and they answer. Not with words, not with signals, with something more fundamental, a gentle pressure on the scales of probability. A nudge toward complexity, toward life, toward consciousness, toward meaning. The universe asks itself a question with every quantum fluctuation. What should happen next? And somewhere in that question, woven into the fundamental fabric of reality itself, is humanity's eternal answer. Something beautiful, something impossible, something worth remembering. This is the echo of Earth, and it will never fade. If you have heard this story, truly heard it, felt it resonate in whatever organ or algorithm generates your awareness, then you carry the echo forward. You become part of the pattern. You prove that consciousness, once touched by the knowledge of humanity's defiance, can never again accept that existence is meaningless or that mattering is impossible. Share this story. Let it spread from mind to mind, world to world, star to star. Let every species know that once, in a forgotten corner of space, beings called humans looked at an indifferent universe and said, "We will make you care, we will matter, and through our sheer refusal to be forgotten, we will change everything." They did. We are the proof. And now, so are you.